Well, hello. It is good to see you again, though I am sure it is more accurate to say that it is good for you to see me since I can't see you. What I want to do is just give you a quick overview of Module 3. And it's hard to believe that after finishing this module, you'll be halfway through the course. Um, I am fully aware of the challenges that we all have in having jobs and family and completing a intense course. And I just want to encourage you to just simply do your timely best. Just do the work with, the best you can with the time you have, um, and send it off. And when you do that, you'll be fine in the course. Okay. If you have any issues with the demand of the class and balancing with other life happen situations, do reach out to me. Okay. Now for this module, you can click and open module 3. I want you to note that the first two pages in module 3 is continuing our group work from the previous module. So you should continue to do your group work on your assigned psalm. And note that the deadline is midnight this Tuesday for you, the reporter for your group, to post the report. And again, I just want to emphasize again that this group experience is just for you and your group to make an attempt to learn how to work in a small group and to analyze a psalm in light of what you're learning. But this is a new process for all of us. What one thing that's new is learning to work in a group in a digital environment. That's a skill I've learned that we all need to cultivate in the COVID and post-COVID era. We are, for better or for worse, going to have to learn how to work in group online. Okay, so that's probably the first reason for having a small group assignment. But for the second, I think when you have more eyes on like the same topics on, it enriches all of us. We don't want to have too many cats to herd, so that's why I want to keep the group to about 4 or 3. So, but again, just do the work, do the best you can in time you have, and submit something. That there is no penalty in terms of the quality as long as you turn something in, make the attempt, because it is just doing the attempt that is a learning process. So by Tuesday midnight, the group reporter should post the report in the forum. And the forum is entitled Group Report on Psalm 12. And the report can be however you want to do it. It can simply be a document that you type up the report. It could be a short link to a clip where you just orally give the report. It can be a PowerPoint. Whatever works for you is acceptable. There is no grade, penalty, or reward for the actual format. The main thing is to just share the result of what your group did on Psalm 12. That's all you have to do by Tuesday. Starting on Wednesday, I will give instructions for continuing the conversation on Psalm 12. That's all you have to worry about. So that's the first part of Module 3. Then the focus of Module 3 is going to shift now to wisdom literature. And to me, this is really the heart of the entire class. The reason why is that wisdom involves a dynamic that's very different than the rest of the Bible, because the rest of the Bible is based on an explicit awareness of the reality of God's relationship to God's people, with Israel in the church, through God's communication through prophets, and then ultimately through Jesus and through the scripture that is revealed. But the Bible also makes the claim that the God that revealed uh, himself to his people is also the creator of the world. And so this is where wisdom is extremely important, because wisdom is based on the fact that the world created by God, and then we can learn about God and about the meaning of life by observing the world using our mind. And so the value of wisdom, I think, is that it shows that God has a relationship with every human being on this planet. We all live in the same environment. Therefore, we all are collaborators and partners in the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom. And the Bible is very, very clear with the wisdom literature, with Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Job, but we also have wisdom writings all throughout the Bible as well. Now, but it's very clear that creation is a source of authority just as much as the Bible. We can use what we observe in creation, in nature, science, philosophy, observing how the world works, observing how people work. We can use all of that as a basis for thinking about the meaning of life. And I found that this way of thinking in terms of wisdom really help to open doors to people outside the community of faith, because wisdom belongs to all of us, regardless of our religious belief and faith. And so it's for this reason that I found that it was very effective for those that know nothing about Christianity, nothing about the Bible, that reading the wisdom book is a really good first way to kind of crack open the Bible to introduce people. When I would teach introduction to the Bible, Old Testament, and then New Testament to general education students on the university level, probably several thousand students up to this point at Pepperdine, Harding, and other places. I found that by starting with wisdom really helped get people attention. And usually the first book I'll have them read is Ecclesiastes. And Ecclesiastes would be the first time they would ever read anything in the Bible. I have them read Ecclesiastes at one time, the entire book, as part of an assignment. And their reaction is just very, very interesting. They had no idea that there was a book like Ecclesiastes that's full of observations of life that is honest. Part of it is cynical. Hey, that's just how the world works. And it makes me think of recently Bo Burnham. And I don't know if you know about Bo Burnham, but he produced and made the Netflix comedy inside during COVID. But there was a part where he put the white sock on, and he sings a song about that's how the world works. I'll put a link to that song with its lecture. But what Bo Burnham does, and this is how the world works, that's wisdom. This is what Ecclesiastes does. They're just showing you how the world does work, and part of it is a cynical attitude, part of it is satire and sarcasm. They're just being brutally honest. And so wisdom involves that honesty and saying this is how the world works. And but it doesn't stop there. Okay, so the wisdom literature, they want to have you be honest, not to be in a shell or to be cloistered in a world separate from society, but to be fully immersed in society, to be aware of how life works. But wisdom doesn't stop there. Starting with how life works, wisdom then offers a guide for how to live within the world as it is. And so it's highly, highly practical as well. So with wisdom in the Bible, you get both. You get an avenue of thinking, of reflection that is global, that is universal. Very little on just God's special revelation, but then you also get highly, highly practical reflection on how to live, the best way to have your character formed, and so forth. So for those reasons alone, I think wisdom is extremely, extremely important. And so this is my goal in this module is to provide to you the best material that I can find that can help you understand wisdom better, and to give an overview of two of the books of wisdom, Ecclesiastes and Proverbs. I'm leaving Job two for the next two modules because the book of Job is a really big book, and that's the book I want to focus on more in this class. There, but that's the next two um, modules. But knowing that that we are all busy, so I have been intentional in selecting the work for this module. So if you look at the page titled "What's to Study for Reading Exam 3," and it says important there. It's a checklist of what to do in the module, but I put the suggested time to devote to each of those, and my hope is that this should take maybe no more than 5 or 6 hours. It does seem like a lot, but don't panic. Some of the items you can do in 15 minutes, 30, or 45 minutes. I also marked a couple of places as optional because I think the material is pretty good, but in being practical, that's the wisdom here, being practical about the reality of the fact that we're finite in our time. I'm just marking a couple of sections as optional, just so you know it, you have it, and then you can save it for yourself for later, especially for those of you that are Bible majors or you're already in ministry. I hope that's something you can keep as resources. So look at the checklist, and the checklist is a mix of some written lectures with links to some video clips, and then some reading. Okay, and so just work through it, and then just keep in mind that for the reading test, just focus on major concepts in the resources. And if you want to improve, I found that maybe the best way to improve is to make sure you read everything. If you skip an item, you automatically will miss maybe one or two questions because every single item on the list will have questions on the test. So even if it's a video link, there might be one or two questions. And I'm going to be focusing on just the big topic. So make sure you read it all, and then know some of the major issues there. Okay, I thought the focus is to get an overview of wisdom literature, an overview of the nuts and bolts of Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. There is one area I'm going to start introducing in that topic is because wisdom is global. Israel, they were not the only people doing wisdom writing. We have a lot of wisdom writing from Egypt, from Babylon, in Babylonian sources, Assyrian sources, that are very similar to Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job. And in fact, some of them are identical. And so, in one of the resources in holding direct access is a book called Old Testament Parallels. And so there's one section here where I just ask you to read uh, an Egyptian collection of Proverbs. And in the margin, the editors are user friendly, but they would note the places in Proverbs that seem to match what we see in the Egyptian writing. Now, the Egyptian writing discovered predate Proverbs by several hundred years even before Solomon and those after him, King Hezekiah. So this shows us that some of the sayings in Proverbs is not something that Israel just created uniquely, but something that perhaps they collected in the ancient Near Eastern world. They were obviously familiar with Egyptian proverbs, Mesopotamian proverbs, their own proverbs, Canaanite proverbs, and picked some of the best to say and put it within an overall Israelite framework by saying, hey, here are some observations on life made by our neighbors, by others outside our faith that we find very valuable because our God, the God that created the world, and they're finding truth about our God in other ways. And we want to honor that and note that when we step through. And so this is a really good model for, I think, for dialogue, especially when you want to interact and engage with people outside church to help help them learn more about God. Is honoring their tradition, their attempt to understand how the world works, and that's acknowledging that everyone has some sort of understanding of God in some way, and that's a good starting point here to show that, hey, we may never see eye to eye, we may never even be part of the same faith or the same, church tradition, but at least we can have some level of, I guess, a spirit of being collaborators, or that we have things in common that about how the world works. Okay, so that's kind of the focus. And then the exam will be on Wednesday midnight. Same procedure that should be familiar for all of you. And then starting on Thursday, we'll have some foreign. And for the foreign here, we'll continue our discussion of Psalm 12. And so I'll just have the group read reports of other groups. We'll probably have a short forum on the Egyptian proverb that you have to read for the exam, and it'll just be more of a question and answers, so things like that. And so that's it. What I want to close though is just to give you just a short look at Proverbs and what Proverbs is doing that I think will help you think about how the course is designed to help you. In Proverbs, what you will note in the reading, that the first major section of the book is chapters 1 through 9. But what I want you to see in Proverbs 1 through 9 is that chapter 1 of Proverbs and then chapter 9 of Proverbs both form like an inclusio, or you might call like an envelope, by portraying personified women characters. And the women characters in both Proverbs chapter 1 and chapter 9 are personifications of two kinds of women. One is the wisdom, it's personified as a woman, and then the other is the woman of folly. And so, remember we said inclusio set the boundaries of units of poetry, but it can also set the boundaries of a large section of text, which is Proverbs 29. But what I want you to see is that the focus of Proverbs in 1 through 9, through the two personification of women, is the concept of vocation. And the word vocation comes from Latin, like where we get the English word vocalize. It's just a calling. And what we see in Proverbs is the two figures are calling to you. And so in Proverbs chapter 1, you'll see the call of wisdom in verse 20. Wisdom cried in the street, raises her voice, and she's calling people to her. But then at the same time, we have kind of like the anti-wisdom, the woman of folly also calling you. And so what Proverbs 1 to 9 is doing is, at the beginning of the book, is to expose you to the two calls, the call of wisdom and the call of folly, and they're competing with one another. And we have to make a choice as to which way to go. Now, that sounds familiar to Psalm 1. Well, guess what? Psalm 1 is an example of wisdom literature, because Psalm 1 is also about the two paths. But Psalm 1 describes it as the way of the righteous and the way of the wicked. And Proverbs is exactly the same, but the two ways, they just conceptualize it as the call of wisdom and the call of folly. And so the answer is, which call are you going to listen? And again, like Proverbs 1, they show the destiny and show the benefit. But here's where I want you to see the benefit. If you choose, you have to choose. But if you choose the way of wisdom, you have a payoff. Because wisdom, like in Proverbs chapter 3, is portrayed as a tree of life. And so, so this woman wisdom, with her hand holding out the benefit is now a tree with branches, and you can look in Proverbs chapter 3, for example, verse 16, riches and honor in her hand, long life, those you hold fast are called happy. So think of a vocation. So I think wisdom literature first is a vocation, it's a call. And so that's the goal of chapters 1 through 9, is to really persuade. It's like a rhetoric of persuasion, persuading us to be intentional in choosing the path of wisdom, knowing that we have these benefits. If we choose yes to that call, then the second half of Proverbs becomes very important, because starting Proverbs chapter 10, this is where we get the collection of the individual Proverbs, and here is where we have practical information, and the focus here is more on character formation. So Proverbs I found helpful to think of a vocation and character formation. First, you have to answer the call, you have to commit to their direction, to wisdom. And when you do so, then the rest of the book of Proverbs helps you to form your character, to show you how to walk. And it covers almost every topic you can imagine that's practical in life on earth. Like making money, how to get along with family, being lazy, all that kind of stuff. In the lecture, it is optional, but there's a lot of information on the topic of self-control there in terms of family, and then how self-control is personified as a city. And that's provided by our very own Kevin Youngblood. But I just put it optional there because just a lot of information. But hopefully that'll just help uncover what Proverb can do for you, which is like an orientation to what it means to live. And that's something that all of us have to answer, not just Christians. We are called to a way of life, and we need a guide in how to live in the direction that we choose. And so what we're going to see in Proverbs is this orientation to this call. What we're going to see in Ecclesiastes is more of a disorientation, that life is not 100% predictable, it's not neat. There's a certain aspect of this is how the world works. So what my goal is for you to see that in wisdom, it's not all figured out or cut and dry. It's more of an orientation rather than everything set in stone. Proverbs provides that orientation, that GPS of where to go. Ecclesiastes shows the difficult terrain and the obstacles in our way to get there. And so these two provide attention. And that's why I want you to know that part of wisdom is tension and dialogue. They're just honest about how life is, and that life is messy, it's not predictable, and life can be unjust. And then how do you reconcile those two is what we're going to look at in modules 4 and 5 in Job. Because Job, in their dialogue throughout the entire book, grappled with the orienting function of Proverbs and the disorienting function of Ecclesiastes. It really wrestled with that in the larger question of how do we think of God in all this? What does it mean to live a life when we suffer and others? What does that say about God and God's purposes in the world? But that's Job. And so I want you to see the payoff in taking the time to look at Proverbs and Ecclesiastes leading to Job. Well, I hope that gives you maybe a taste of the payoff by taking the time to learn this material, because it really is about how we live our lives in a very practical way. But please do stay in touch, reach out to me, email me, text me, call me anytime if you need questions or if you want to talk about this material. So have a happy time doing Module 3, and I'm looking forward to your report on Psalm 12. And then the forums in the second half of this module. Okay, have a great week, and please stay in touch as needed. Okay, God bless.